I am very present to the everyday stressors in my world right now as a parent, as a professional, as a member of my community, the Christmas parties, the family dynamics, the who's doing this and who's doing what, last minute Christmas shopping, and then, all the other traumas that I'm carrying as a result of the holiday season, family dynamics, and this sort of thing. And I know I'm not alone. I know that all of you, in your own way, shape, or form, are carrying these things. And in fact, we know that our clients, because they're coming to us with all of the issues, really kind of are struggling right now. And so I thought today would be really powerful for us to really walk through. Somebody's sharing their screen right now. So I'm going to ask you to stop sharing, whoever that is. I don't know if they can hear us. I'll let you guys take care of that. Continue. There we go. So I'm going to be sharing my screen in a moment, and we're going to just kind of be talking about this window of tolerance idea that I thought would be really, really important for us to kind of touch on. I was just having this conversation with my stepdaughter, Callie, who also is on board here with Support After Abortion. We were talking about how important it is for us to name things in order for us to feel like we have some sort of control. This might be as simple as, naming that the reason I didn't sleep last night was because I had a cup of coffee the night before, instead of waking up paralyzed, like, what's the matter with me? Why did I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning? When we do that little investigation and name it, something that small might have been what kept us up. But this goes all the way to the other side of the spectrum for people who are struggling with ailments in their bodies. And they finally get that doctor who knows the right blood test, the right exam, the right thing to do. And before they know it, they're diagnosed with whatever that thing is. No matter the diagnosis, most people I meet are just grateful to know that there's a diagnosis, because when we have that diagnosis, when we have that name for that thing, then we have a treatment. And so often it is just that, being able to name what's going on for us to be able to feel like we have some sort of order in our life. So that's what my goal is with you today, is to help really name what's going on maybe in your world, in the worlds of the lives that you're touching, and really kind of just bring a conversation to life around this, so that not only maybe you can feel some ease going into the holiday, but perhaps you can bring some ease to those around you, and then carry this into January, February, March as you're serving your clients. So give me a moment to share my screen. And we're going to be talking about the stress, right? We just kind of talked about that. And I have a few visuals before we break into this. And clearly, this is a fun-looking submarine. But what I really want you to be drawn to is the window on the side of this submarine. I want you to kind of envision, if you will, yourself maybe, sinking in the submarine in a healthy way. You're going on an exploration, and it starts to get a little darker the more you sink from this top of the surface, and it gets a little bit darker and it gets a little bit darker, right? And I want you to envision yourself just being able to look through that side window, right? And as it gets a little bit darker, perhaps all you can see is what's right in front of you. You might not be able to see what's right underneath, maybe shadows of things. You're not going to be able to see what's to the right and the left. Again, maybe you'll see a shadow and it might look like a stick, or it might look like a shark. It might look like, seaweed. We won't know. And then on top of you, maybe you're starting to see the light, dim, and things are disappearing up there. And you don't know if that's, a boat up there anymore, or if that's something floating on the top of the surface. My point here is that the more that our perspective is limited, we're not sure what's going on all around us. So I want to just paint this picture for us as we dive into this conversation, that this is so much of where our clients are. All they can see as this submarine is sinking is whatever that window allows them to see. They're unable to kind of really depict what's going on around them. And what kinds of things would that do for you, for me, for our clients? It creates some anxiety. It creates insecurity. It creates questions about the unknown. Is that a stick or is that a shark? Am I too far from surface, or am I just far enough? Am I going to hit the bottom soon? I'm not sure. But because we can't see everything, our window only allows us to see what's in front of us. So I want you to hold this vision as we kind of explore this conversation today. very opposite picture is perhaps now we can look at ourselves on top of a building, right? And as we look at ourselves on top of a building and we experience that, I want you to notice all the things that you can see as a result, right? If there's a airplane flying over, you look up, you know exactly what that noise is, you know exactly where that airplane is, you know exactly what direction that airplane's flying. If you hear an ambulance down on the street, you know that that ambulance is going to something. Perhaps you can even see the accident up the road, right? If there's a band playing at a restaurant, if there's a wedding, if there's whatever is going on, you can see so much of everything that's going on. And I want you to just envision what it would feel like as your client or as yourself to be able to have a more larger perspective, to have a more larger view of what's going on. Right? How does that feel as we're jumping into the conversation? If you'll put it in the chat, the difference between only being able to see through that little window on the side of a submarine versus standing on top of a big building in the middle of the city and being able to see everything that's going on, right? What does that bring up for you? Let's just keep it in the chat for now, but just kind of considering the difference in what is available to us, okay? And so that brings us to this conversation about this window of tolerance, right? When stress, when trauma, when lived experience is causing pain in our life, look at what happens. Our ability to see everything, our ability to understand it, our ability to live through it in a healthy way begins to collapse. Our window of tolerance gets to be much smaller to the point where we can only see through that little side window what's going on. So oftentimes our clients might be like, he yelled at me and now I can't go Christmas shopping. Now my kids aren't going to have any Christmas presents under the tree because he told me that he's not going to love me through this season. Really dramatic, right? And then if we met them 20, 30, an hour, maybe 2 hours, maybe a night later, everything's different. And all of a sudden, they've gotten connected to Salvation Army. They've gotten connected to Angel Tree. He's not angry anymore. And Christmas is going to look different, right? But so often when all of those things start to pile on top of us, it cripples our understanding, and our window to see everything else that's going on begins to find itself very, very small. So I want you to be thinking about that as you consider yourself and your clients. What kind of questions could we begin to ask our clients when they're in these state of crisis to get them to a different place in their perspective? How can we help them climb that building to see more of what's going on than only what's right in front of them? That's our goal today, is to what could you implement today for yourself and for those around you to bring a bigger scope, a bigger understanding? Because when we can see everything that's going on, wow, the curiosity that we have in our spirit, the ability to make different decisions, the ability to see things that we couldn't see if we were only looking at through that little window are phenomenal. So here's some things as we think about the two different ways in which this window can shrink. We have hyperarousal, right? These are symptoms that are related to this intensity, this heightened experience that limits that window, right? We have anxiety. Many of you know what it looks like with our clients with impulsive responses, major reactions. And we're like, as we're sitting across from them going, is this emotion match what's really going on here? Right? And I want you guys to think, if the emotion doesn't match, it's our job to help say what's really going on here. And for ourselves too. You get in the car after a long day and you get this really bad phone call and you just lose it on whoever just called you. Was that the appropriate response for that situation? Or because you had a limiting day of just lots of stuff piling up on you, that your intensity of your response or your reaction really was greater than what you normally would have done because you didn't have capacity to handle that day. Hypervigilance. Did I turn off my flat iron? Did I turn off the stove? I don't remember, right? Because you've been cooking all day, you've been thinking about all these things, and you're just so overwhelmed with the dynamics in the situation. You'll see increased tension. This is why we see so often during the holidays all these arguments. So many of my family members are having conversations in their head or conversations with other people about the family that's going to be there, that when the family actually gets there, they're ready for war. And they don't even realize that they've been planning this attack for like 2 weeks prior. And the person that shows up at the door doesn't even know that they've been planning this war. And then can you just imagine the amount of tension and experience that is for everyone? We see our clients in states of physical response, addictions and overeating and, shaking and obsessive thoughts, emotional outbursts. These are all things that cause this hyper state of reactivity that shrink that window of tolerance. So I want to pause for a moment and just kind of consider maybe offering some tools in the chat feature for you. What kinds of things when you're meeting with a client, or maybe that you do with yourselves when you're feeling these kinds of things, what do you do to calm down? Or what do you do to help your clients calm down? So if you'll just share those thoughts in the chat feature as you think about these things, what has worked for you? What has worked for your clients to help them find a more at ease place, a more balanced perspective, a less reactive place, and an ability to be calm in the moment so that their emotional brain can be defogged and their intellectual brain can emerge. We're going to talk about the opposite because we have clients on different spectrums, right? So we have the clients that are really intense with these hyper reactive places. And then we have these people that are more down and less obvious sometimes, or they might be more obvious because their depressive symptoms are so glaringly obvious. And so here's some of the things that people on the other side of the spectrum might be feeling that limit that window of tolerance. They might feel disconnected, especially this time of year, right? What if this was the time of year that we saw that one uncle that abused our client every year during this Christmas season, and it was just a terrible time for her? And so she finds herself withdrawn and disassociated and disconnected from the season, right? Maybe this is a child who's a product of divorce, and this was just a yucky time of year for them. And every holiday was just a lot of anger and excitement. And so, if this client reaches her 20s and she's going, I just don't really care this year about it. It was always such a stressful time of year. I'm going to withdraw from this. Okay. Maybe it's somebody who doesn't have emotions at all. Something really significant just happened and they don't have the ability to express themselves. We see this often when our clients are faced with really terrible situations and they don't know how to get angry. They don't know how to have emotions, appropriate emotions around the situation. We have a lot of robotic experiences. So many of the people in our world are on autopilot or in these robot states where they just kind of go through the motion and do what they know to do, right? They're unhappy, they're disconnected, but they're just going through what they know to do. A lot of these characteristics fall into like maybe some people that that have depression, right? They're numb, right? They're not very talkative. They withdraw and stay in their home. So many people that have experienced abuse have so much shame and embarrassment connected to their stories. They don't really have a lot of time or energy. Maybe this is the male client who is at home, who doesn't engage and stays on his video games all night leading up to Christmas morning. And then as soon as he can break away, he plays video games the rest of the day. Okay. This is the person that maybe just does everything that they're told to do. They don't know how to say no. It's just this constant, just people pleasing, appealing to others. So these are two different sides of the spectrum, but both equally toxic and unhealthy. But if you can look at them as that spectrum that kind of limit us from seeing what it is that we really need to be able to see in terms of our holiday stress, our life stressors, and anything else that our life is encompassing at the time. So as I've kind of been encouraging you, we need to know how to de-stress during these experiences. We need to know that these are even stressful experiences in order for us to be able to help the clients that we serve, right? And so we're going to really specifically now engage, now that you kind of have the big picture, the big framework of understanding, how does this topic apply to those clients that we're serving that have experienced abortions? Very, very important for us to understand that. And we're doing a lot at Support After Abortion to help people understand. And I know many of you are too, that sometimes, it's these big events that we have that are the most triggering. Sometimes we have clients that can stuff these abortion experiences so far down until that baby shower, until Mother's Day, until Thanksgiving when all the kids are coming home, until the announcement on Christmas Day of the new baby that's being carried right now in her mother's womb into the family, right? These are the moments that sometimes often trigger our clients. And I want you to just kind of envision what that might feel like. Our client, maybe a 25-year-old young woman and her partner, experienced abortion 2 years ago, and they're sitting on the couch of their family's home, and the sister walks in super excited, has the family unpack, the picture of the ultrasound, and all of a sudden, that client's vision becomes this focused on that ultrasound, right? And all they can see, it's all they can do to be able to take a deep breath and sit in that room and tolerate that experience, because no longer can they handle the dynamic of the whole situation. All they can do is now see that ultrasound and be reminded of the experience they walked through 2 years ago, right? That window of tolerance just sucked in. And I want you to think about that. We've all had those moments. We've all had that moment where it's like, whoa, what just happened? I just went from this moment to that moment in no time. Right? And again, going back, excuse me, to naming things, if we know that our clients are walking into situations this season, how helpful would it be to talk to them about these things? What are you going to do if you feel triggered at the holidays? What are you going to do if something happens that you find yourself super focused on the experience? What does life look like in that moment? How can you find yourself trying to climb on top of that building so you're not super focused on that situation, right? What does your body need? What does your mind need? What does your spirit need in that moment? So here's just some things that we want to kind of bring to your attention, right? For you and for the clients that you serve, right? Just some really basic things that we can be doing to help climb out of that submarine window and onto the top of the building. We want to help cultivate an awareness around what is going on. What symptoms are we having? What's taking place inside of our bodies? What's creating noise in our mind? Where are we feeling it in our body, right? Then we want to be able to identify, what is that? Ooh, that thing in my gut, that's not an upset stomach from food I ate last night. Like, that is my body telling me that it doesn't feel good, that it feels sadness, it feels anger, it feels fill in the blank. Okay. We want to recognize where we're at. Is it a 1? Like, I can handle this. Or is it a 10 and I need to go outside and take a walk? And then we want to get to the root of it. What's going on? So one of my favorite things to do, and I want to teach this to you really quickly. My team wasn't prepared for this. Let's say you're having this experience, and this is really for you guys at the holiday season, but let's say you're having an experience, one of your family members is doing what they always do. They drank too much and now they're picking fights with everybody. And every year it kind of causes the same sort of turmoil in your body, right? I want you to go to the bathroom. I want you to go to that separate room where everybody keeps their purses. I want you to go out to your car, whatever you need. And I want you to find a way for you to feel like you are connected and grounded, whether that's leaning back in your chair, whether it's leaning against a wall, whether it's taking your shoes off and putting them in the grass, whatever your ability and your experience is, I want you to get connected with your body. And then I want you to acknowledge what's happening, right? I feel scared. Uncle Bruce is off the handle again, and he's picking a fight with Dad. I want you to get into that chair against the wall, and I feel scared. And I want you to tell yourself, I hear that you feel scared. What's scary? Okay. So in that moment, your body is going to feel, and your mind and your heart is going to feel connected to. You're acknowledging what's going on. Okay, I'm scared. I hear that my body feels scared, that my mind feels scared. And I'm scared because Uncle Bruce is having one of his outbursts. And I don't want him to yell at me. And then you sit there and you breathe through it, connect to yourself. And then you find yourself not just at the frozen side of the dining room table where you can't move and you have to just tolerate Uncle Bruce, but now you're on top of the building and you go, ah, I don't have to be around Uncle Bruce for the rest of the night. I can choose to stay on the patio. Oh, I could even ask to leave the party. Huh, okay. Maybe I can move to a different room. Maybe I can go play Scrabble with the kids. See the difference between being frozen at the dining room table where Uncle Bruce is having his outburst versus moving away, connecting with yourself, understanding why you're frozen, and giving yourself permission to be creative about what other possibilities are available to you. Now you've climbed up on top of the building and you can see so much more opportunity than what you had when you were at the dining room table. I strongly encourage this for you guys for any situation, not just this Christmas, but any time, is how can you listen to yourself, connect with yourself, give yourself the validation to understand the stress level, know what's going on, and climb on top of that building to be able to understand all the opportunities that are available to you. You know, so many of us are so good at saying to other people, why didn't you just leave? And then you go, I don't know. I didn't think about it in the moment, right? Like some of us are like so connected to that stress and trauma that we don't offer ourselves that opportunity. But when you give yourself the space to be able to see things more objectively on top of the building, your ability to have more tolerance and handle that situation grows. And so this is really just expanding on what I just shared, just giving words to what I shared. The whole goal of handling our stress is to move from being able to see that moment or that experience through that side of that submarine to being able to get on top of that building and expand ourselves. Okay. And just to reiterate, what's going to shrink it are things that are our traumas, our triggers, our stresses, right? Belief systems that we have, limited understanding, anything that causes us to get here is things that are usually unresolved. I call them icky, sticky places inside of us, places that have yet to be healed. These are wounds inside of us, okay? And again, the expansion happens when we use tools like I shared, when we allow ourselves to soothe and feel more in control of our situation, okay? And some of you have shared, I'm sure, in the chat feature.